I have this HR28 here with some fault. So here, if I switch the machine on, I think there is a Canbus issue here or something. The motor controller started, the light came on, and then it dropped out straight away. And I have nothing. So there's no alarms, nothing is going on, nothing is working. Engine start, only emergency pump. So we're gonna try to see what's happening here and where the problem is. So I'll do a quick check with diagnostic box and see what sort of error codes we're seeing. So let me start the machine up. Starting up. Diagnostic box started. Errors goes red, so let's see. Error 27, can safety error and missing axiomatic valve driver. So the error 27, that means that the base and cage PLCs are not communicating, and the valve driver is the one. So this one is putting the error out 21 out. So the error 21 saying this is missing, and error 27 is saying that the communication is not possible, and there's a general Canbus error. So we're gonna go from there. And I see there is some parts here from the previous repair attempt. So we're gonna try to see what is happening here. So I opened the control box here, and it's a relay missing here. So I think that's why we have the spare relay here. That's why there is a beeping tone when I switch the machine on. Instead alarming tone, I think. So let's put that relay in, and then we're gonna start. Okay, so relay is in. Let's start. See if we still have that constant sound, or it starts beeping now. Okay, so that is good. All right, let's do. So the first thing I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna check the resistance here on the Canbus line. So this is terminal 9 and 8, is your CAN high and CAN low, and these two wires are coming from the cage. So I'll measure resistance on them and see what we have. We should have a 60 ohms, so I would expect to see that. So let me get the multimeter into resistance mode. So the one thing is important is to have the machine off. So the power is off now. So I should be able to see some sort of resistance here. I'm gonna use these 2 points, so it's just easy access to terminals on that side. And I'm having 28 ohms. Let's see if you can see that. 28.2 ohms. So that is suggestion that there is a short circuit on the Canbus wires. The CAN high, CAN low is shorted out. So the next step we're gonna do is we're gonna remove these 2 wires. I'm gonna measure resistance in the cage. Okay, so if I remove these 2 wires, I should have 120 ohms on these wires and 120 ohms on the terminal. So let's try that. Okay, so I remove those 2 wires. So I'm trying to do my best to hold them together, the probes on them, but I'm just measuring resistance on those 2 wires, and I am having 121 ohm. So that's perfect as it should be. I think I just lost connection on it. Just one more time, better connection. 120 ohms. So we are good all the way up to the cage. So let's measure in the terminal now. So now at the terminal 9 and 10, I should have 120 ohms as well, but I'm having 36 ohms. Okay, so 36. So there is an issue somewhere with the wiring on the base control. So now we know the cage is not a problem. It's a problem at the ground control. At the ground control, so the wires from here goes inside the chassis there to the PLC, engine node, the motor controller. So we need to establish where is the short coming from. It's not dead short, but it's definitely the reducing resistance. and the motor controller should provide a termination of 120 ohms. So maybe I'm gonna just check engine side, so make sure everything's okay there before we continue. So I'm on the engine side now. That's engine PLC, the motor controller right there. I'm measuring resistance 37 ohms. So I'm gonna disconnect the connector here. You see this connector there. I'm gonna disconnect that, and that will separate this whole engine compartment from the main control box. So I will do resistance check again. And I should have 120 ohms now in here. So that's what I get, 120 ohms. So that means the wiring in this box and the motor controller is all good, okay? So now we know there is something happening between this plug and the main control box. So let's go back to main control side and see what sort of resistance we get there. So back into the main control box here, and I do measure resistance on the terminals again. And now I'm getting, see if you can see, 52 ohms. Okay, so now we need to find out where that is coming from. This is not right. It should be open circuit. I mean, it should be very, very high resistance, kilo ohms, mega ohms. It should be really high. Just out of interest, let's see if there is any voltage on it. Because if we have a voltage on here, that would mess up our readings. And there is no voltage, it's zero. So these wires here, Axio plus, and that's your power supply to valve driver. And then you have a CAN low, CAN high is a cord number 4 and 3. That's the wires that connects the axiomatic valve driver into the Canbus. So I will remove them, and we're gonna try to go by process of isolation, and then we're gonna retest the resistance on terminal 9 and 10. So look, I removed the valve driver, yeah, so those two wires, 4 and 3, and now I have a resistance that's gone up to 11 kilo ohms. Yeah, so I'm measuring 9 and 10 again, and that's 11 kilo ohms. So now we know that these wires made a difference. Let me see if I can hold them on and measure resistance across them. So if I'm measuring across them, look, that's 53, 54 ohms resistance on CAN high, CAN low wires to valve driver. Let's see if we can disconnect the plug. So that's a valve driver. So the Canbus wires, CAN high, CAN low, is on a black plug, this plug here. So I'm gonna remove this plug, see if that's gonna make any difference to the resistance reading, okay? So let's measure again. So I'm measuring across the wires now, and that is open circuit. So with the plug disconnected, I have open circuit. So that just shows us that there is no problem with the wires there, or with the loom to valve driver. So let's have a look on the valve driver itself and see if we can see anything wrong with it. I mean, the connector looks all right, unless something has happened there. So CAN high 6 and CAN low is pin 7, so 6 and 7. So those two pins. All right, let's remove the valve driver and see the pins inside the unit. Just to prove the point, I'm measuring on the unit itself, and it's a 53 ohms. That's a pin 6 and 7, CAN high, CAN low connections on a black plug. There's nothing wrong with it. 6 and 7, your CAN high, CAN low. So I think that's a problem with this unit. Let's try a new one. Just for reference, that's a new unit, so pin 6 and 7 again. So we have nearly 80 kilo ohms, huge resistance, yeah, comparing to 53 ohms. So connector back on, nice and tight. So all connections here are good. So we got a new valve driver mounted on, and I connected everything back up. So axiomatic can high, can low, the cage can high, can low. Let's do resistance check now, and you possibly can guess now that resistance should be let's do it here. Yeah, it should be 60 ohms now. Yeah, so we're expecting to see 60 ohms. So I go again, terminal 9 and 10, and we have it. So here we go, 60 ohms. So now the question is if the machine is gonna work. So let's start it up. So key switch. Switched on and gone off again. Switched on and gone off again. So same as before. That's strange. All right, let's see if we go to transport mode. Okay, so every time the controller comes on, the machine shuts down. Interesting. So let's try to disconnect the contactor coil and then see if the machine will stay on. So under here we have this contactor, so I'm going to remove one wire that will trigger the fault on the motor controller, and let's try to see what's going to happen. Starting up. Okay, machine started but switched off right away. So let's see if we're getting any more errors. I think we're getting error 27, communication error. Okay, so that means there is no communication base to cage. All right, let's double check on the resistance, make sure everything's okay, and we're gonna go from there. Okay, so resistance is good. So we need to figure out why we have no communication now. Okay, so let's connect this back on, and the next thing, I check this fuse, this one here, that's all good. So this time I will disconnect the wire from this relay. That's a U-key plus wire. So this is the wire that's supplying the power into the motor controller to enable motor controller. So what I'm looking actually now is to get the power on and then see if the error is gonna go away. So let's start it up. Okay, so look, it started on and it stays on. So now PLC is flashing green. So we got no errors now. Okay. And if we look into error codes, missing chassis node, missing motor controller. Okay. So we do expect the motor controller error because the motor controller is actually disconnected, but the strange error is that chassis node is missing when we have the power on here. So that relay is feeding the chassis node, and this is a PLC inside the chassis. So that error shouldn't be present. That chassis node should be on. Oh, wait a minute. I think I know what that is. Let's have a look. This relay. Oh yeah, you see that's a dual relay here. You see there is a separate contacts, and the way this is wired in, so they cannot feed into it through that. So let's try to swap this one. It should be single pole relay here. I think that's the way it should be. Okay, let me get this and can't do it with one hand. Yeah, let me put the relays in and we're gonna try together. Okay, swap the relays now, so let's start it up. So I'm expecting to see error only for the motor controller. So all three relays on, and the error code we have is only missing motor controller. Okay, so that's good. The only thing that we had a sounder going off, so I need to check on that. So that relay should stop the continuous beep. It should be alarming instead of continuous beep. Okay, so now I see the problem with this relay here. So the relay K1 is actually, if you look into it, I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, you can. You see how the contact plate is sitting right in the middle, in between, stuck in a limbo. All right, so we need this new relay. It should be like that, and not like that. Okay, but that doesn't stop us going and investigating further. I think it's just for the sounder, so it has to be fixed obviously, but it's not stopping us from continued diagnostics with the Canbus. So we know that if the motor controller is disconnected, the machine works fine. So that's kind of makes me think that there is a fault in the motor controller. It's just because if you don't switch this on, then the machine kind of works, so, or doesn't represent error 27, which is communication error. So it seems to me like this device is faulty. So let me do some checks. I will do the checks between the phase wires and the case, just for the short circuit, and then go from there. So just before I try the new controller on it, I will try to see what sort of voltage I have on the startup. So now 77 volts on a UK wire. I switch the machine on, and it's gonna go to start. So look, that stays on now. Interesting. So look, that's on if I press a green button. Alright, so the controller is not actually working, but the machine is staying on now. So we have no errors, and a controller is connected back on. Ah, why? Connected back on. It's not. Alright, let's do it again. Let me connect everything back on again. Alright, try again. So controller is connected now for sure. Let's power on. Okay, machine is gone off. So it started up and gone off. The voltage didn't drop, so that's good. So it's not the issue with the voltage. Okay, so I'm gonna go with the new controller, and I think that's where the problem is. So new controller on. Let's just put this on loosely now. So just for a test, because those bolts are not easiest thing to get on. So I'm gonna connect Anderson isolators back on, and then we're gonna try. Okay, both of them in. So we're gonna try to start the machine up, and hopefully that's gonna work. Hey, look at this. Stayed on, the contactor clicked in. See if I'm gonna press a green button. I can hear the motor is running. That's a good news. Okay, so that's perfect. So that's a controller. So let's finish mounting, and then we're gonna continue testing from there. Okay, so all assembled back on. So the controller is nice and tight. Back in the place, all the covers on, cap is back on, diesel box is closed. So I checked the connections here on the controller relay, and on these as well. So that's all seems to be good here. So we're gonna do a trial now again, just to confirm it's working, and then do a function test after that. So sorry for the noise you're gonna have now, but I'm gonna start this up again. So this is a new one, all tight, connectors in, all the connections here is done except the relay K1, but we know that K1 is for the sounder, so it's not affecting what we're fixing here. So let's start this up. Okay, the machine started. Press the green button, I can hear the electric motor is running. Let's look into diagnostic module. So we have no error codes, Canbus, cage base operational, all devices operational. No errors. Let's see the power tree. So motor, so we have no speed, battery voltage 78, pressing green button. As you can see, 2000 RPM, 26 amps. Let's see if I can start diesel engine. Go to preheat. Start. So engine started, the current is going up. So motor is starting to charge the batteries. Okay. So that seems to be okay. Alright, so I think it's gonna be fixed. So I'll do more function test, and then we go from there. So it's all checked over now, so it's all seems to be good. I checked all the wiring, and everything seems to be perfect. No more trouble. So only thing I found was a loose connections on the main contactor, which what can happen if your motor is running on a heavy load or regioning, and the contactor loses connection, is going to shut down. So that could cause some sort of issues or some damage to the controller. But yeah, it's strange how this got damaged in such a way that resistance on the can line had gone so low. So it would be interesting to see what's happened there. But I would imagine would be some voltage, high voltage surge on the can lines, and that possibly could cause this type of failure. But it's all good for now, and the machine is working. Tested quite a while now, so it's no problem. Drives and boom functions working fine. So it's almost good as new. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.